CBS News political director John Dickerson joins us again. Also, CBS News contributor and Republican strategist Frank Luntz is in Detroit. He's done some more nationwide exit polling. Frank, good morning. Tell us what you found out and what is the most interesting and surprising thing from this election for you.
Well, as we talked about yesterday, this was not an election about Barack Obama, but it wasn't even an election about Washington. What we found out is just it's a complete rejection, frankly, of those who want to do more in government. That no matter where you look, the public is saying enough is enough. Do less and do it better. I'm going to give you three statistics. First, when we asked them what was the reason for why you voted, the number one reason was to send a message to Washington to make the change that the public deserves. Only 25%, 1 out of 4 voters, voted to send a message or to refuse to support Barack Obama. Second, and I think that this is dramatic, 42% voted against the candidate for Senate. 4 out of 10 voters said that it's not that they voted for someone, it's that they voted against someone. And the third is that the public genuinely wants the American people genuinely want Washington and government to work together and compromise. The survey was done for each American dream, and the message, Charlie, is clear. Now that you won, start to govern, start to lead, and start to get things done.
All right, John, so where do the Republicans go from here? How will they work with the president and vice versa?
Well, I think they have to basically, as the strategists and leaders in both the House and the Senate say, is that they are now being watched, and they have to show that they can govern. And that, I think, based on my initial conversations, does not mean grand, big things. They need small trust-building exercises, not just necessarily to begin the process of working with the president, but to deal with the challenges within their own party. It's wonderful to win, but then everybody thinks they know the new way for winning. The new way forward. And so you're going to have one group of Republicans that want to go this way and another group that goes that way, and the leaders are going to have to build a coalition and say, okay, let's move forward together. And that's tricky.
And that's why you have leaders.
That's why you have leaders. But the levers of power, it's interesting, we're watching the institutions change. The Senate's a good example. You can rise in the Senate now by being a big public figure. That didn't used to be the way in the past. And that means there's less levers of power for the leaders to get you to do what they want.
But what kind of message does it send if last night Rand Paul is already raising the question, will President Obama obstruct justice? Will it obstruct the process, rather, or work with us? Well, if he's putting that out there already.
Yeah, well, Frank will do his focus groups will tell you that's probably not a message that people want to hear.
Frank?
Yeah, the number one attribute, according to the Each American Dream survey, the number one attribute that they describe towards Washington is frustration. And so they don't want on election night for someone to be saying no. There are no absolutes from today forward. And this goes for blue states, for purple states, and for red states. The amazing thing is that it was a universal, just standing up and saying no to what is happening today, no to the status quo.
Well, here's my question. So you have, let's talk about the new people in the Senate. You have Mitch McConnell. You have Joni Ernst from Iowa, who says we're going to make them squeal in Washington. We have Gardner in Colorado, very conservative, former House member there. If you look at a number of these new senators, they're quite conservative. Why wouldn't they go along with what Rand Paul has said? They're going to send bills up to the president. As he told Charlie Rose last night, we're going to keep sending bills up to the president, and we'll see whether the president wants to work with us or not. Is the president going to be forced to veto a bunch of bills?
Yeah, but that's okay. That's the way it's supposed to work. So that's not necessarily bad. It's just a question of whether the bills, when they get there, everybody looks at them and says, okay, those are serious pieces of legislation.
So we're going to have another election, another change election where voters kick out members of parties because they're sick of them.
It depends. In the old way, the way they designed this whole American system was you could send them up, they get vetoed, then you have a conversation, you fix it, and then something goes through. That's if people are serious on both sides. If the legislation that's sent up is just gimmicky, is just a show thing, and the president's making his own showy behavior that has nothing to do with getting to an end result, then you'll have another kind of rejection.
Okay, let's talk about the economy, because as Anthony and Gail were doing in the exit polls last night, I mean, you have 78% of the people saying they're worried about the economy, and yet Wall Street is just buzzing along, and you have 63% say the U.S. economic system favors the wealthy. How is that going to play in terms of how candidates who want to win the president in 2016 talk about this real economic divide in this country?
They have to speak to, they have to say, I'm fighting for you. And when they say you, they have to speak to that 70% who thinks the economic system is tilted away from them.
Frank?
And what they're looking for is a government that is more efficient, more effective, and spends less. This is overwhelmingly the top two priorities. It's actually not changing Obamacare. It's not ISIS. It's not Ebola. Make government more efficient and effective, and Washington should spend less. That will give Americans faith in the economy for the future.
Am I naive to believe that it would be in everybody's interest if somehow Republicans and Democrats can find a way to show that they're capable of coming together on something to get things started?
It would be, well, no.
Hope springs eternal.
Yes.
Well, you can
but I mean,
see.
no, let's show we can do this and we can build on it.
Well, you can. Let's look at the specific interests of each side. The government, the Republicans say they have to show they can govern,
Right.
and the president's got to worry about his legacy.
Right.
And what's the last thing they're going to be thinking about when he leaves office?
I'd
That
like,
might
to go,
bring him
I'd like
together.
to see a meeting where the president says, "What do you want?" And then they say, "What do you want?" And then we try to find a way out.
All right. Frank Luntz, yesterday when you left us, you said don't trust Republican pollsters. You're not saying that today, Mr. Luntz. Very good to see you. Good to see you.
It's wonderful to see you all, too.
All right, John
from Detroit.
Dickerson. Thank you, John Dickerson from Detroit.